For the last 12 years, Marvel has been an absolute powerhouse when it comes to making movies, rewriting how things could be done by taking the connectivity of comic books and proving that the same could be done for the big screen. While not every movie they produced has been the best product that could have been offered, the general quality has been pretty steady since the first. But there's always been one particular movie that Marvel's produced that I felt gave us the perfect balance of action, comedy, and drama more so than any of the others. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, I am your ever-friendly Pokeprof, and welcome back to Fascinating Fiction. Back before 2014, if you were to go out and ask folks who the Guardians of the Galaxy were, most people outside of hardcore comic book fans probably wouldn't have been able to give you a straight answer. They are, perhaps, the biggest success story out of all the Marvel Cinematic Universe cast, where even bigger characters like the Hulk still haven't really had a movie that most folks would call successful or even that good. And while there have been other reviewers and folks who have gone on about just how good the movie is, I think the why it's so good is pretty ignored. That is to say, the balancing act of comedy, drama, and action that take place of the film. The beginning of the film is actually something that I feel shows off the aspects of what I'm talking about the best. We get a serious opener where we see the main character of the film, Peter Quill, running away after refusing to really say goodbye to his mother on her deathbed, only to then be abducted by aliens. We then cut to years later and we see him as an adult. That's your drama. Now, in any other movie, you would have expected such an experience, and being kidnapped would have led to a character that was all dark, grim, and gritty like something out of the 90s. Here, though, we get a musical number along with seeing just how goofy this kid has turned out. This is our main character, Star-Lord, and he sets a precedent for the rest of the movie of giving us characters who portray themselves in one way and then reveal them to be completely different just a few scenes later. In fact, this is where the crux of the comedy of the movie comes from, a sleight of hand, if you will, where they set up a particular expectation and then pull the rug right out from under you just a few seconds later. You see it throughout the movie where a serious situation is presented, like the next scene in the film where Ronan the Accuser's henchman demands something and Peter doesn't even treat them as a threat at all, at first trying to trick them into believing he's just a simple junker, and then trying to oppress them with his title of Star-Lord. The other Guardians all have elements like this as well, with Drax the Destroyer being the other best example of taking something that would probably otherwise be seen as a serious character and making him fun. I mean, where else are you going to have someone who's known for being a murderous ex-con, and they make him a goofy, sympathetic musclehead that takes everything quite literally? That's your comedy. And then you got the action, which, considering the movie, should speak for itself, with gunfights, fistfights, space fights, you name it. Nearly everything is here, and it never overstays its welcome. In fact, that's the why. Unlike so many other films, like the first Avengers film, which had an overabundance of action, or the Hulk films, which played pretty heavy into the drama of Bruce Banner, Guardians of the Galaxy never lets itself get too comfortable with any one element of its movie for very long. Let's actually take the prison scene where we first meet up with Drax the Destroyer, and the characters themselves are actually given a chance to form bonds with each other for the first time. We actually start here with the drama, learning at first about Drax's history as a character and how his family was killed by Ronan. We also see Peter Quill do his best to convince him not to kill Gamora then and there. Then we get back to comedy as Rocket builds the plan to escape, both with him including the prosthetic leg in his plan, as well as Groot's overall actions in the background, causing the entire plan to go awry before he even has a chance to start up. Then finally we get back to the action, with the entire sequence of the group trying to escape the prison, the elements of comedy and drama even coming back when it comes to quips of the characters, as well as the relationships between them, in particular between Drax and Gamora themselves. We even get a little bit of world building in between all this when we cut away to look at Ronan and Thanos for a few minutes. A particular highlight for fans of the cinematic universe, considering this is the first time we get to see the Mad Titan in all of his full glory since he was teased at the end of the first Avengers film. The rest of the movie continues on like this, working to weave that balance of drama, action, and comedy. But what's perhaps the best aspect of this isn't just the way it works within the scenes themselves, but how it works to develop the characters and their relationships. At the start, the characters are all at each other's throats, sometimes quite literally. They're thrown together by circumstances as Quill, Rocket, and Groot are mostly there to get money, Gamora's wanting to get onto the straight and narrow, and Drax is really just there for revenge. But when it's revealed what they're fighting for is an Infinity Stone, and Ronan is able to get his hands on it, the entire group is willing to band together among themselves, the police that capture them, and even the Ravengers that kidnap Peter as a kid to try and not only save the planet that Ronan is wanting to destroy, but by proxy, the rest of the universe. Now, I could continue singing the praises of this movie, and frankly, I think it deserves it. But there's just one other point I'd like to make. The fact that a lot of the other Marvel movies after this one kind of take a leaf out of the Guardians book. To make this point, look at the movies before Guardians came out and after. The Iron Man films, Captain America, the first two Thor films, and the original Avengers. All of them had their funny moments, dramatic moments, and action-y moments, but it always felt like one of those outweighed the other. The Iron Man films were all about action with some drama sprinkled here and there. Thor played up the drama in the first film, while the second was nothing but action, and Avengers was quite literally a nearly 2.5-hour fight scene. A well-deserved one, I'll admit, but a fight scene nonetheless. After Guardians came out, though, we had Ant-Man, Thor Ragnarok, and Endgame itself. All of these films, I feel, looked long and hard at Guardians and saw just how well a blend of humor, action, and drama flowing together like they did could work for them. I feel like Thor Ragnarok is perhaps the best example of this, where we get to see the hilarious actions of Thor having to deal with the Hulk being balanced out by having half of his people, as well as the Warrior 3, some of my favorite characters, being killed off by Hela. It's the action, drama, and comedy that all works together. That's not to say that these films wouldn't have been action-packed, funny, or dramatic as they had eventually turned out if it wasn't for Guardians of the Galaxy. But I do feel like that the impact that Star-Lord and the crew had was larger than could have been realized at the time, and is something that we'll see in future films across the Marvel Cinematic Universe. As I said at the start of this, I feel that Guardians of the Galaxy is perhaps the strongest film in the MCU, with its balance among its core aspects that are so strong that few of the other films have been able to equal it. It's made characters that were otherwise considered to be barely C-list popular heroes and made them into household names. It took the otherwise little-known Chris Pratt and shot him into a major movie star. It's done a lot more than I think some people give it credit for, and it's one that I thought could use a little bit more attention as of late. With that, I hope you have all enjoyed another episode of Fascinating Fiction, and will hopefully look forward for more to come. Should you have any suggestions on something you'd like to see me cover, please leave a comment below, as well as liking the video and subscribing if you wish to see more content like this. It really does help us out. Be sure to also check out Getting With the Program, a more off-the-cuff show in which Kitty Cross, Ash and Sky and I go through a series that one of us are not familiar with episode by episode, and give our honest thoughts about them. I also have a Twitter and a Twitch if you wish to follow us there, where we usually will play games and just give my general thoughts about what's going on at the time. But until then, folks, stay frosty.